Podcast Talk.
Learn English naturally.
How people keep conversations going.
Most conversations don't end because people run out of words. They end because something breaks underneath the language. A pause feels awkward. A reaction feels forced, and the float quietly disappears.
And the strange part is, this almost never depends on English level. People with simple English keep conversations alive. People with advanced English often struggle, because keeping a conversation going is a different skill.
This matters because conversations shape how people see you. They decide whether you feel confident, present, and easy to talk to. And most of the time, that impression forms before grammar or vocabulary even matters. It forms in the first reactions, pauses, and signals you give without realizing it.
If you like conversations that sound real and honest, subscribe to OffScript English. It really helps us keep creating episodes like this. We focus on how English works in real life, not how it looks on a page.
One reason conversations stop is that people try to finish them instead of develop them. They answer fully, clearly, and correctly and then everything stops. In real English, people don't aim for completion. They aim for continuation.
You can hear this difference when someone reacts instead of concludes. A reaction keeps the door open. It shows interest without pressure. And that feeling invites the other person to stay in the conversation longer.
Natural conversations move forward through curiosity. Not big questions, but small signals that say, "Tell me more." Those signals are often invisible to learners, yet native speakers use them constantly.
When curiosity is missing, conversations feel heavy. People start performing instead of connecting. And once that happens, even good English can sound stiff and unnatural.
Keeping a conversation going is not about sounding smart. It's about sounding available. Available to listen, to react, and to follow the other person's direction.
Once people feel that availability, they relax. They speak more freely, and that freedom is what keeps conversations alive longer than any perfect sentence.
One reason conversations stop early is that people focus too much on what comes next instead of what is happening now. They think about their answer, their English, or how they sound, and while they're busy preparing, they stop reacting. That small break in presence is often enough for the conversation to lose its natural rhythm.
In real conversations, people don't wait for perfect timing. They respond while the moment is still alive. Even small reactions like agreement or surprise help maintain connection. Without those reactions, conversations start to feel distant and mechanical.
Natural conversations grow through shared attention. Both people focus on the same moment, not on separate plans in their heads. When that shared focus disappears, the conversation slowly fades. But when it stays, even simple English can feel rich and engaging.
This is why listening is more powerful than speaking. Listening keeps the conversation open. It gives you time to feel the direction instead of forcing it. And that feeling helps you respond naturally without pressure.
Many learners think they need better phrases to keep conversations going, but often they already have enough language. What's missing is permission to stay curious instead of correct. That permission changes everything.
Curiosity signals safety. When people feel safe, they open up. They speak longer, share more, and relax. And that comfort keeps conversations alive without effort.
Another thing that keeps conversations going is allowing silence. Silence doesn't mean failure. It often means thinking. When silence feels allowed, conversations feel calmer and deeper.
Learners often rush to fill silence because they feel uncomfortable. But rushing can break the flow. Pausing, even briefly, shows confidence and awareness. That pause helps the conversation continue naturally.
Natural English is not fast, it's responsive. It adjusts to people, mood, and energy. When learners allow that adjustment, conversations stop feeling forced.
Keeping a conversation going is a shared responsibility. It's not about carrying the dialogue alone. It's about creating space where both people feel comfortable continuing, and that space is what real English sounds like.
Another reason conversations stop too early is that people confuse politeness with distance. They respond correctly, they nod, they agree, but they don't emotionally join the moment. Polite answers keep things smooth, but they don't always keep them alive. In real conversations, people stay longer with they feel emotional involvement, not just respectful behavior.
You can hear this difference when someone reacts personally instead of neutrally. A neutral response closes space. A personal reaction opens it. That opening tells the other person that their words landed, and that feeling keeps the conversation moving forward.
Many learners are afraid to react personally because they don't want to be wrong. But conversations are not about being right, they are about being present. Presence allows small imperfections, and those imperfections often make speech feel warmer and more real.
Another thing that keeps conversations alive is following energy instead of structure. Real conversations don't move in straight lines. They shift, pause, return, and change direction. When learners try to control structure too tightly, they often interrupt this natural movement.
Natural conversation feels like walking together, not following a map. You adjust your pace, stop when needed, and move again. That shared movement creates connection, and connection is what makes people want to stay in the conversation.
Learners often think conversations need constant input, but sometimes what keeps them alive is restraint. Knowing when not to speak allows the other person to expand. That balance between speaking and allowing space is central to natural English.
When space is respected, people feel less rushed. They think more freely, they speak more honestly, and those honest moments deepen the conversation without effort.
You can hear this depth when people stop performing language. They stop trying to sound interesting. They focus on responding truthfully, and truth creates momentum that grammar never could.
Keeping a conversation going doesn't require confidence at the start. Confidence often appears later. It grows as people realize they don't need to control everything to stay connected.
Once that realization settles in, conversations feel lighter. Language becomes a tool, not a test. And that shift alone can keep conversations going far longer than expected.
One thing that quietly kills conversations is the fear of taking up space. People shorten their thoughts, soften their reactions, and hold back because they don't want to sound awkward or annoying. But when everyone does that, the conversation becomes thin. Natural conversations stay alive because someone allows themselves to fully react, fully stay, and fully occupy the moment without apologizing for it.
You can hear this clearly in conversations that feel rushed. People answer quickly, change topics too soon, and move forward without letting ideas settle. Nothing has time to breathe. In real English, conversations slow down just enough for meaning to land. And that pause creates connection instead of discomfort.
Another reason conversations fade is that people try to sound neutral. They avoid showing opinion, emotion, or personal reaction. Neutral language feels safe, but it also feels distant. Conversations grow when people gently reveal where they stand, even if it's imperfect or unfinished.
Neutrality can protect you from mistakes, but it also protects you from connection. When people sense real presence, they stay engaged, they listen longer, they respond more openly. That openness is what allows conversations to continue naturally instead of fading politely.
Many learners believe they need stronger language to hold attention, but attention is not held by complexity. It's held by sincerity. When your reaction feels honest, people stay with you, even if your English is simple.
You can see this in everyday situations. A short, honest reaction often keeps a conversation going longer than a perfect explanation, because honesty invites response. Perfection often ends it.
Keeping conversations alive also means accepting that not every moment needs to be interesting. Some moments are quiet, some are slow, and those moments create rhythm. Without them, conversations feel exhausting instead of natural.
Learners often try to fill every gap because silence feels like failure. But silence is often a sign of comfort. It shows that both people feel safe enough not to rush. That safety strengthens the conversation rather than weakening it.
Another way conversations continue is through emotional alignment. When reactions match the tone of the moment, people feel understood. That understanding encourages them to keep sharing instead of pulling back.
Once emotional alignment is present, conversations don't need effort. They move forward naturally. Language stops being something you manage. It becomes something that carries you.
Another thing that keeps conversations alive is when people stop trying to impress. The moment someone tries to sound interesting, smart, or advanced, tension appears. But when that pressure drops, reactions become more honest. And honesty creates space where the conversation can continue naturally without effort.
You can often feel when someone is performing instead of participating. Their responses sound polished but distant. They finish thoughts instead of opening them. And slowly, the energy of the conversation drops.
Natural conversations grow when people allow themselves to be slightly unfinished. They don't rush to explain everything. They leave room for interpretation. That openness invites the other person to step in and continue the exchange.
Learners often think clarity means saying everything. But in real conversations, clarity often comes from saying less. When you give space, the other person fills it naturally. That shared building is what keeps conversations alive.
Another reason conversations feel easy is emotional safety. When people feel they won't be judged or corrected, they relax. They take small risks. And those risks lead to deeper, longer conversations.
Safety changes how people speak. They slow down, they explore ideas. They don't rush to conclusions. And that slower pace allows conversations to unfold naturally.
One of the most underestimated parts of keeping a conversation going is learning to stay comfortable inside silence. Silence often feels threatening, especially in a second language because it creates space where nothing is being said. But in real conversations, silence is rarely empty. It's often a moment where both people are processing, reflecting, or deciding what feels right to say next.
Many learners rush to break silence because they believe something is going wrong. But native speakers often read silence as comfort. It signals that no one feels pressured to perform. And that lack of pressure allows the conversation to continue in a more natural and relaxed direction.
Another thing that keeps conversations alive is emotional mirroring. When someone shares something and the reaction matches their tone, energy, or mood, connection deepens. This mirroring doesn't need words. Sometimes it's a pause, a breath, or a quiet acknowledgement that says, I understand.
When emotional mirroring is missing, conversations feel disconnected. People may still exchange information, but something feels off. Once mirroring appears, people relax. They feel seen. And that feeling naturally encourages them to keep talking.
Keeping a conversation going also means allowing imperfection. Real conversations are messy. People restart sentences, change direction, and adjust their words. Those small imperfections signal thinking, not weakness.
Learners often try to avoid these moments because they fear sounding unclear. But clarity in conversation is not about precision. It's about intention. When intention is clear, small imperfections don't break understanding.
Another way conversation continue is through shared vulnerability. When someone admits uncertainty, confusion, or hesitation, the other person often responds with openness. That shared honesty creates trust. And trust keeps conversations going longer than confidence ever could.
This is why overly confident language can sometimes end conversations. It leaves no room for response. But vulnerability invites participation. It tells the other person there is space for their thoughts as well.
Natural conversations are not balanced by turns, they are balanced by attention. When attention flows naturally between people, the conversation doesn't need structure to survive.
Attention is felt before it is heard. People sense when you are truly with them, and that sense of presence keeps them engaged longer than any prepared response.
When learners focus on presence instead of performance, something shifts. They stop monitoring every word, they start responding naturally, and conversations begin to move forward with less effort.
Presence doesn't mean speaking more, it means responding honestly to what's happening. That honesty keeps conversations alive because it feels real.
Over time, these small moments add up. Silence, mirroring, imperfection, and honesty slowly shape how conversations flow. And once those elements are present, conversations rarely end suddenly.
This is how conversations stay alive in real English. Not through control, but through connection. And connection is something you can feel, not memorize.
At a certain point in a conversation, something subtle happens. People stop choosing words carefully and start choosing honesty instead. They no longer ask themselves how something should sound. They ask whether it feels true. And that shift often marks the moment when a conversation becomes real rather than polite.
When honesty enters a conversation, time feels different. People slow down, they listen more carefully, they respond with intention instead of habit. That change in tempo is one of the strongest signals that a conversation is no longer superficial.
This is why some conversations feel memorable even if nothing dramatic is said. They feel grounded, they feel sincere. And sincerity has a weight that clever language does not. It stays with people longer than perfect phrasing ever could.
Learners often underestimate how much tone and pacing matter at this stage. The words may already be correct, but how they are delivered changes everything. A slower pace allows meaning to settle. A steady tone creates trust. And trust keeps conversations open.
As conversations deepen, people also become less afraid of saying the wrong thing. They accept that small misunderstandings can be repaired. They trust the relationship enough to continue. That trust removes pressure and replaces it with presence.
Presence is what allows conversations to breathe. When people feel seen, they don't rush. They don't protect themselves with distance. They stay. And staying is often the most powerful contribution to any conversation.
At this point, language becomes secondary. Connection leads, words follow, and even simple expressions begin to sound rich because they are supported by real attention.
Many people believe that good conversations depend on saying the right things. But real conversations are rarely built on precision. They are built on awareness. When you are aware of the other person, their mood, and the moment itself, language naturally adjusts. And that adjustment keeps conversations alive far longer than any planned response.
This awareness changes how you listen. You stop waiting for your turn. You stop preparing answers. Instead, you stay with what is being said. And that presence makes even simple exchanges feel meaningful and real.
When presence becomes the focus, conversations no longer feel fragile. You don't worry about losing them. You trust that they will move naturally. And that trust removes the tension that often causes conversation to end too early.
At this stage, English stops feeling like something you perform. It becomes something you share. You no longer measure your speech. You experience it, and that experience is what people remember long after the conversation ends.
This is why conversations that feel good don't need perfect endings. They slow down naturally, they settle. And both people leave feeling understood rather than impressed.
When conversations reach this point, a silence feels different. It no longer signals awkwardness, it signals completion, a shared understanding that nothing more needs to be added.
This is how conversations stay alive from beginning to end. Not through effort, not through control, but 相处一点, but through attention, presence, and genuine connection.
If this episode helped you feel conversations differently, stay with us and tell us in the comments what topics you want us to explore next. We're here to talk about real English, the way people actually experience it.